2025 already, man. Halfway through the decade. We got 5 years left of it. I'm gonna try and explain to these rap artists, these hip hop artists, the difference between them both and how we can look into them and try and improve what we are doing when we look into who is hip hop, who is rap. Right now, all I gotta do is give you a decade history from 70s, 80s, 90s, thousands, all the way to now, the 20s, just so I don't miss any type of top of the iceberg details. And if you choose to dive deeper into the iceberg, let go, Jack. But this is like the top of the iceberg for each decade of rhythm and poetry versus hip hop. That's what it is. Let me tell you about it then, man. So in the 70s, the likes of Jill Scott Heron and the Last Poets may have not actually created the rap as we know it today. What they did was have the combination of spoken word poetry over these like percussion driven jazz kind of instrumentals, which was where you would get your rhythm from. So technically speaking, even though it might have even been done before the 70s,
the goofy, foolish human parade,
Jill Scott Heron and the Last Poets were like the first rappers you'll get. Tracks like The Revolution Will Not Be Televised demonstrated the power of words set to rhythm, starting a movement that would grow into a cultural force. This is where it really began as a whole culture. Was in 1974 when DJ Kool Herc revolutionized music at 1520 Cedric Avenue in the Bronx, New York. What he did was he used two vinyl records and his innovative merry-go-round technique, isolating and extending the break beats, the perfect grooves for the b-boys and b-girls to show their dance moves. These break beats became the heartbeats of early hip-hop, and the dancers known as b-boys and b-girls turned them into dynamic displays of rhythm and creativity. Cindy Campbell, the first lady of hip-hop, which is DJ Kool Herc's sister, played a pivotal role by organizing and promoting Herc's events. These gatherings became the foundation of a new cultural movement, blending music, dance, and community. Fashion also became a defining element of hip-hop culture during this time, when tracksuits, bomber jackets, and sneakers with oversized laces became the uniform of the streets. With brands like Puma, Chuck Taylors, and Prokes dominating the sneaker scene, this style not only reflected individuality, but also served as a statement of belonging to the burgeoning hip-hop community. Rhythm and poetry finally became rap as we know it, with funky grooves of the pioneers like Sugar Hill Gang, Grandmaster Flash, and the Furious Five, whose music brought hip-hop to the forefront, blending catchy beats with storytelling flair. However, by the late 80s, rap evolved into a powerful provocative force, having California seizing the spotlight with NWA, whose groundbreaking Straight Outta Compton introduced the world to gangster rap. This raw and unapologetic subgenre redefined the culture, inspiring a generation of artists and becoming a blueprint for many of your favorite artists' favorite artists. Fashion took a sharp turn in the 1980s as hip-hop culture began to define its unique style. Denim jackets, black bowler hats, and shell-toe sneakers became the staple of an era. LL Cool J played a pivotal role in popularizing the b-boy aesthetic with his signature Kango bucket hats, chunky gold jewelry, baggy clothes, and most famously, branded sneakers that became synonymous with hip-hop fashion. While DJ Kool Herc was no longer actively DJing, the hip-hop scene was thriving. Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five were rising stars, delivering groundbreaking tracks, while Afrika Bambaataa pushed the boundaries of sound by experimenting with techno alongside producer Arthur Baker. This era marked the turning point as DJs began collaborating with rappers to create records that not only defined hip-hop but also elevated the art of turntablism to new heights. Around the same time, beatboxing emerged as a revolutionary art form. Inspired by the rhythms of drum machines like the TR-808, artists began using the mouth, lips, tongues, and voices to mimic percussive beats. Pioneers like Rahzel, Kenny Muhammad, and Biz Markie, the GOAT, laid the foundation of beatboxing, making it an essential element of hip-hop culture. Graffiti, already a powerful mode of urban expression in the 70s, became deeply intertwined with hip-hop by 1982. During the New York City rap tour, street artists used walls, trains, and other surfaces to reflect the struggles and vibrancy of city life. Rhythm and poetry and regional influence played a crucial role in this connection. solidifying graffiti as the visual art of hip-hop and enduring symbols of its roots. The 90s stood out as the coolest decade, and much of its essence was shaped by the cultural revolution of the late 80s when gangster rap took center stage. This genre captivated audiences worldwide as people found both entertainment and empowerment in the voices of these musical outlaws. Through their lyrics, they spoke raw truth, sparking conversations that transcended music. At this pivotal moment, hip-hop and rap were deeply intertwined, yet they each held their own unique identities. Artists like Tupac, Nas, and Public Enemy used their platforms as protesters and activists, delivering potent, socially conscious messages that resonated with struggles and aspirations of their communities. On the other hand, legends like Notorious B.I.G. and Snoop Dogg brought a more introspective psychological depth to their music, weaving intricate poetry that explored the complexities of life, survival, and ambition. The golden era of storytelling not only defined the sound of a generation, but also left an indelible mark on culture, creating a legacy that remains unmatched. Now for the golden era of hip-hop, with iconic artists like Dr. Dre, Nas, Wu-Tang Clan, and Outkast shaping diverse subgenres such as West Coast G-Funk, East Coast Boom Bap, and Southern hip-hop, still with lyrics often tackling social issues like racism and equality, while the genre gained mainstream appeal through chart-topping collaborations. Fashion featured baggy clothing, brands like FUBU and Tommy Hilfiger, and iconic accessories like gold chains and Timberlands. Breakdancing, graffiti, and innovative music videos were central to culture. The East Coast versus West Coast rivalry highlighted tensions, but also defined the era. By the end of the decade, hip-hop became a global phenomenon. Influencing media, advertising, and film, solidifying its role as a cultural and social powerhouse. In the 2000s, rhythm and poetry evolved into a dominant and diverse force. Shaped by regional styles, mainstream success, and thematic innovation, the South rose to prominence with crunk, snap, and chopped and screw styles, while the Midwest, Eminem and Kanye West, and East Coast, Jay-Z and Nas, continued to influence the genre. Themes ranged from materialism and party culture to personal storytelling and conscious rap. Auto-tune and mixtapes rose in popularity, and Pharrell and Timbaland influenced the rise of producers, becoming worldwide superstars. Fashion featured oversized clothing, streetwear brands, and flashy jewelry. While sneaker culture thrived, technology and the internet revolutionized music distribution, and reality TV brought hip-hop into homes. The culture expanded globally, maintained its political voice, and solidified its role in shaping pop culture. While subject matter did take a step backward in hip-hop culture, people who listened to rap decades prior became confused by the difference between rhythm and poetry versus hip-hop, which is why it's important to me that this video comes out due to my love for both. So yes, the hip-hop culture had taken over pop culture for definite during this decade, but artists still push rhythm and poetry in an innovative or mastery manner. Kendrick Lamar and J. Cole were still giving reasons to why rap is probably the most powerful genre since the late 80s, but you old head motherfuckers still bitched about what you said was mumble rap, when that shit was mumble hip-hop at least. Rap still had its importance nonetheless, with Kendrick Lamar achieving all kinds of awards, from Grammys to Pulitzer Prize, for his album Damn, which is a great example of rhythm and poetry being pushed through with innovation, even though he had done this 10 times better before. Now, as I said, the hip-hop culture took over in a huge way. I'm not from Memphis. The hip-hop culture took over in a huge way. The 2010s were a transformative decade for hip-hop, marked by the rise of subgenres like trap and mumble rap, mumble hip-hop, with artists like Future, Migos, and Lil Uzi Vert leading the way. Lyrically, artists like Kendrick Lamar, J. Cole, and Drake blended introspection with mainstream appeal, while SoundCloud rap, driven by figures such as XXXTentacion and Lil Peep, introduced a DIY experimental approach. Social media, specifically Instagram and Twitter, helped artists build brands and engage directly with fans. Hip-hop's influence on fashion grew with its rise of streetwear and sneaker culture. While the genre became more politically engaged, continuing to address issues like racial inequality with the Black Lives Matter movement. Streaming services like Spotify and Apple Music reshaped music distribution. The decade saw hip-hop evolve from an underground rebellious form to a globally recognized and celebrated cultural movement. The masses tend to be disappointed and state that rap is starting to die out. It's becoming evident that some of our favorites are falling tremendously out of their prime. Unfortunately, meaning that rhythm and poetry is not as highlighted as it was. So okay, old heads, I'll give you 5 seconds to bitch about what rap is today. But that's because you look above the surface. What you should know is there's still rhythm and poets like J.I.D. along with the Ghost from the 2010s, still pushing the boundaries of lyrical expression. And that moment everyone was ready to come to an understanding of R.I.P. rap. We get one of the biggest moments in rap history, taking place back to back to back to back, until Kendrick delivered that right hook, taking the W in the first half of this decade. So unfortunately, yes, we are having a problem with the hip-hop culture in this decade. Yes, the beef was a huge moment. However, if we look at it overall, artists are becoming too mysterious, too comfortable, or rushing the process in their creation. We don't have the same drive because we see these industry plans blowing up overnight off of TikTok. We want to get that same exposure, so we look for the latest trends. And if we have to be honest, a lot of the underground trend, being rage, is why Playboi Carti probably doesn't need to drop until 2030. Whole Lotta Red is a huge reference point that dropped in 2020. And every underground youth is biting everything off of it. So if we look at a very vague description of 2020's hip-hop, it's opium. Outside of that, there's more experimental music and concept albums. So for fashion, you either look like Blade or Tyler, the Creator. Overall, there's definitely a difference between rhythm and poetry and hip-hop. Of course, they are an inseparable part of each other, but I think if we understand the difference, we can push both forward. In theory, hip-hop artists would focus more on creating a brand or aesthetic and express themselves more in their music without biting off their peers in a non-collaborative way. And for rhythm and poetry artists, yes, you too. We can start to write more creatively in a poetic sense and start with the basic lines. It's not rap without poetry. And with all that being said, I was Colden. You've been whoever the hell you are. Please like, comment, subscribe, and see if we can get 2025. Oh, that Lil Baby album was actually kind of dope. So I have high hopes for 2025 in hip-hop. That Doechii music video, everything is kind of starting off well. Joey Badass song, that's hard. He's trying to go East Coast versus West Coast again. Obviously, we've seen that in the 90s. I think we're off to a good start. You know, I also release music. That's it, man. That's like, comment, subscribe. That's Colin. Obviously, you've been whoever the hell you are. That's out.